The roach you saw last night in your kitchen is not alone. There are at least 60 more behind your refrigerator right now, and the spray you bought at the hardware store for $19? It only killed the ones brave enough to walk in the open. The rest are laughing at you from inside your walls. But there is a white powder sitting on the bottom shelf of the laundry aisle in every Walmart, every Tractor Supply, every hardware store in America. It costs less than $5 for a box that will last you 2 years. And it has been quietly killing roaches, ants, and fleas in Amish homes for over 100 years, long before exterminators charged you $400 a visit to do the exact same thing with a fancier label. 6 years ago, I drove out to a farmhouse outside Millersburg, Ohio, to research something else entirely. I walked into the kitchen and spent 10 minutes looking under the sink for the bug spray. There wasn't any. There was a glass jar with white powder, a wooden spoon, and a yellowed index card with a recipe written in pencil. That index card is the reason I'm making this video. What I'm sharing came from 2 places. A 1948 extension bulletin, nobody reprints. And kitchens in Lancaster County that haven't seen a roach since before the Korean War. 20 hacks. 1 box. The 20th hack is the one that matters most. I found it in a Penn State document from 1962. Even most old-timers have forgotten it. This works whether your house is brand new or built in 1925. You don't need a contractor, you don't need a permit, you just need to know what they stopped telling you. Let me start with the roach problem, because that's why most of you clicked, and I need you to understand something before I give you the recipe. The reason your store-bought roach spray fails is not because roaches are tough, it's because the spray kills on contact only. The roach you see dies, the 200 you don't see keep breeding. Within 3 weeks you're right back where you started, and the chemical company gets to sell you another can. Borax works completely differently. When a roach walks through borax dust, the fine powder sticks to the waxy coating on its legs and underside. The roach goes back to the nest. It grooms itself, because roaches are obsessive groomers. It ingests the borax. The boron compound destroys the lining of its digestive tract and shuts down its nervous system over the next 24 to 72 hours. But here is the part the exterminator does not want you to know. Before that roach dies, it gets eaten by other roaches in the nest. Roaches are cannibals. That contaminated body becomes a delivery system. One treated roach can take down a dozen more. Some entomologists call this the transfer effect, and it's why a $4 box outperforms a $400 service call. Here is the recipe I copied off that index card in Holmes County. You take equal parts borax and white sugar, mix them dry in a glass jar, and set out small piles on pieces of cardboard. The sugar is the bait. The borax is the killer. The roaches cannot tell the difference between the 2 white granules. You place these piles behind the refrigerator, behind the stove, under the sink, in the back corner of every cabinet, and along the baseboard where the wall meets the floor. You leave them there for 2 weeks, you do not touch them, you do not vacuum them up, you let the roaches do the work. For heavier infestations, the Amish woman who taught me this added a second variation. Half a cup of borax, half a cup of flour, and a tablespoon of cocoa powder. The cocoa is not for flavor. It is because cocoa attracts roaches more aggressively than plain sugar, and it darkens the powder so it blends into corners where you don't want to see white piles. You roll this dry mixture into small balls about the size of a marble using a few drops of water, let them dry overnight on a paper plate, and tuck them into the spots a vacuum cleaner will never reach. Behind the stove vents, inside the cabinet next to the dishwasher motor, under the lip of the bathroom vanity, in the dark space where the water heater meets the wall. I tried this in my own kitchen 6 years ago after a German roach problem I could not get rid of for 9 months. 3 exterminator visits, $480 total. I put out 12 of these little dark balls on a Sunday afternoon. By the following Friday, the trail of dead roaches led directly to a crack behind the dishwasher I never would have found. I haven't seen a roach in that house since. The third hack is the boric acid honey bait, and this one is for the truly desperate. You take 1 tablespoon of borax, half a tablespoon of honey, and just enough warm water to make a thick paste. The honey draws them in, the water keeps the mixture moist, because dry baits dry out within a few days and stop working. You spread small dots of this paste on jar lids and slide one under every appliance in your kitchen. The roaches eat it, they bring it back to the colony in their digestive tract. The colony collapses within 10 days. Now, before you tell me you've heard of borax before, let me address that. Yes, your grandmother knew about it. But what your grandmother knew is exactly what the chemical industry spent 50 years trying to make you forget. In 1946, 20 Mule Team Borax was sold in nearly every American home as the universal pest solution. By 1965, mass-market chemical sprays had replaced it on store shelves, and the marketing budgets behind those sprays were 1,000 times larger than what a mineral company could spend. They didn't ban borax, they just made you forget, and once you forget, you pay forever. But roaches are only the beginning, because the same powder that ends a roach infestation also handles the second worst pest in any American home, and that is what I want to talk about next. Ants are not stupid. That is the first thing you have to accept. The reason most ant traps fail is that ants communicate. They leave chemical trails called pheromones, and if one ant dies suspiciously close to a food source, the colony marks that source as dangerous. This is why those plastic bait stations you buy at the grocery store stop working after a week. The ants update their map. They route around the death. Borax beats ants because borax is a slow killer. The ant does not die at the bait. The ant carries the bait back to the nest, feeds it to the queen, feeds it to the larvae, regurgitates it to the other workers, and dies hours later somewhere else. The colony never associates the food source with death. The poison spreads through the entire family before anyone notices. The hack I learned from a beekeeper in Pennsylvania uses 3 ingredients you already have: 1 teaspoon of borax, 1 cup of warm water, half a cup of sugar. You stir until the sugar and borax fully dissolve. You soak cotton balls in this liquid. You place the soaked cotton balls in shallow jar lids and set them anywhere you've seen ants. Within 15 minutes, you will see something that looks like a small horror movie. Streams of ants will appear from cracks you never knew existed. They will swarm the cotton balls. This is exactly what you want. Let them. Within 45 minutes, the visible activity stops. Within 72 hours, the entire colony is dead. The ratio matters more than you think. If you use too much borax, the ants taste it and refuse to drink. The sweet spot is roughly 1 part borax to 50 parts sugar water by weight. Some people use the 3-to-1 sugar to borax dry mix and add water to make a syrup. Both work. What does not work is dumping borax straight on an ant trail. They walk around it. They are smarter than that. For grease-loving ants, the kind that ignore sugar and go straight for the bacon pan, the recipe changes. You replace the sugar with peanut butter. 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, 1 teaspoon of borax, and a few drops of vegetable oil to keep it from drying out. Smear this on small squares of cardboard and place them along the trail. Carpenter ants, which most homeowners mistake for sugar ants, almost always prefer protein. If your sugar bait isn't working, the problem isn't borax. The problem is the bait. Now here is something that took me years to understand. A 1962 document from the Penn State Cooperative Extension Service mentioned that adding a small amount of dry yeast to the borax sugar mixture dramatically increases its effectiveness against fire ants and certain carpenter ant species. A 1/4 cup of borax, a 1/4 cup of sugar, and 1 tablespoon of dry baking yeast. The yeast acts as a secondary irritant in the digestive system and amplifies the killing effect. I have seen this clear out a fire ant mound in the backyard in 4 days when nothing else would touch it. You can also use borax dry against ants outdoors. You sprinkle it directly into the mound, then pour a ½ gallon of warm water on top. The water carries the borax down into the chambers where the queen lives. The colony dies from the inside out. A $4 box treats roughly 40 mounds. The professional treatment for a single fire ant mound runs between $50 and $90. But there is one more application for ants that nobody talks about, and this is the one that the exterminators truly do not want you to know. When you find an ant trail coming in through a window or a door frame, you wipe down the trail first with a 50-50 mixture of white vinegar and water. The vinegar destroys the pheromone trail. Then you dust a thin line of dry borax across the entry point. Any ant that crosses that line gets borax stuck to its body. It dies before it can leave a new trail. The entry point seals itself. I used this technique on a sliding glass door in my own home that had been an ant highway for 3 summers. 1 application in May, no ants for the rest of the year. And the next spring, no ants at all. because the colony outside had moved on after losing too many workers. That $4 box has now solved two of your worst problems, but the worst pest in your home right now is the one you can't see. It lives in your carpet, it feeds on your dog. And the way Borax kills it is so simple it feels illegal. Now, if you already own a house and you are thinking this only applies to people building from scratch, stay with me. Because this next part is specifically for you, and it works on carpet, hardwood, tile, and even outdoor pet runs, without any special equipment. Fleas have a 4-stage life cycle: egg, larva, pupa, adult. The flea you see on your dog is only 5% of the problem. The other 95% is invisible to you. Eggs, larvae, and dormant pupae buried in your carpet fibers, in the cracks between your floorboards, in the upholstery of the couch, in the seams of your pet's bed. Most flea sprays kill adults only. Within 2 weeks, the eggs hatch and you start over. Borax destroys fleas at the larval stage. It also dehydrates the eggs and damages the soft bodies of the adults. The way you apply it is the key. You take a clean glass shaker, the kind you might use for Parmesan cheese, and you fill it with plain 20 Mule Team Borax. You vacuum the entire floor first, every inch. Pull the furniture away from the walls, pull the cushions off the couch. Then you shake the borax across the carpet in a fine, even layer, not a pile, a dusting. You take a stiff broom and you work the powder down into the fibers. You want it at the base of the carpet where the larvae actually live. You leave it there for 48 to 72 hours. Then you vacuum thoroughly and dispose of the vacuum bag immediately in an outdoor trash can, because the bag now contains live flea eggs and larvae that will hatch if left inside. One application kills roughly 90% of the flea population in a treated room. A second application 2 weeks later catches the late hatchers from pupae that were too dormant to absorb the first treatment. 2 treatments, 1 box of borax, maybe $4 total. Compare that to the average professional flea treatment, which runs between $200 and $400 per visit and often requires multiple visits. The critical safety note here is exactly what you need to think about. If you have a dog or a cat that walks on the carpet, keep them off the treated area for the full 48 hours. Borax in small contact amounts is not deadly to pets, but it can irritate paws and stomachs if they lick it. The same goes for small children who play on the floor. The rule is simple. Treat when the house is empty for the weekend, or treat one room at a time and keep that room closed off. For hardwood floors and tile, the same technique works in the cracks. You shake borax along the seams where the boards meet, sweep it into the gaps with a soft brush, and let it sit. Fleas lay eggs in the dust at the bottom of those cracks. Borax dries them out before they can hatch. For your pet's bedding, do not put borax directly on the bedding where the pet will sleep. Instead, wash the bedding in hot water with a 1/4 cup of borax added to your normal detergent. The borax kills any eggs in the fabric and prevents reinfestation. Dry on high heat, done. For an outdoor pet run or a backyard with a flea problem, you can apply borax directly to shaded soil where fleas breed. A light sprinkle, watered in lightly with a hose. This kills the larvae in the soil without harming grass at low concentrations. Avoid flower beds because higher amounts of borax act as an herbicide, and that is actually our next bonus application. This is the existing home solution I promised you. Every one of these techniques works in a house built in 1920 just as well as in a house built last year. You do not need new plumbing. You do not need a contractor. You do not need to file a single piece of paperwork with anyone. You just need a box of borax and one Saturday afternoon. But there is something else I want you to think about. Why did this knowledge disappear from the mainstream? In 1946, a chemist named Wilhelm Huper, who later became one of the founding voices warning about industrial carcinogens, noted that the post-war chemical industry had a problem. They had built enormous production capacity for organochlorines like DDT, Schlordane, and Dieldrin during the war years, originally for military insect control in the Pacific Theater. When the war ended, those factories needed civilian markets. Borax, sold by the Pacific Coast Borax Company since 1872 and made famous by the 20 Mule Team brand, was the dominant household pest remedy. It cost almost nothing, it lasted forever, and it stood directly in the way of a billion-dollar pivot. What happened next is documented in the trade press of the era. Between 1947 and 1954, advertising spending on synthetic pesticides in American magazines increased by roughly 2,200%. Borax advertising collapsed. The 20 Mule Team brand was sold, resold, and eventually reduced to a laundry booster sitting on a low shelf. The pest control applications, which had been printed right on the box in the 1930s, quietly disappeared from the labeling. By 1965, the chemical industry had introduced synthetic pyrethroids and organophosphates that were patentable. Borax is a naturally occurring mineral. Nobody can patent it. Nobody can corner the market on it. So the marketing went elsewhere. The textbooks were rewritten, the extension bulletins were updated to recommend the new products. And then in 1972, when the Environmental Protection Agency began regulating pesticide claims under the amended Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act, any product making a pest control claim had to be registered as a pesticide, with fees and paperwork that made it uneconomical for a cheap mineral product to carry those claims at all. So the box went silent. The knowledge went underground. And within one generation, an entire toolkit of pest control knowledge that cost almost nothing was replaced with a system that cost the average American family between $300 and $1,200 every single year. 2 generations of Americans grew up believing that a $4 mineral could not possibly do what a $40 spray could. The Amish never updated. That's the entire reason these techniques survived. While the rest of America was being sold cans of spray, the families in Lancaster County and Holmes County kept doing what worked because what worked cost almost nothing and they had no reason to change. The index card in that farmhouse near Millersburg had been copied from the original, which had been copied from the original before that, going back to at least the 1930s. And that is exactly why I am about to give you the next set of hacks, because borax does not just kill the big 3. It handles silverfish, weevils, drain flies, dust mites, termites, and at least 8 other household pests. And the way it handles each one is different. Stay with me, because we are about to go through the rest of the 20, and the final hack is the one I have never seen written down anywhere except in a single document from 1962. Silverfish are the gray, fish-shaped insects you find in old books in the corners of damp basements. They feed on starch. The hack here is to take a piece of stale bread, dampen it slightly, and dust it with a 50-50 mix of borax and powdered sugar. Place it on a paper plate in the back of any closet where you've seen them. Silverfish eat the sugar and starch from the bread, ingest the borax, and die within a week. One treatment usually clears them for a year. Weevils in your pantry are next. If you've ever opened a bag of flour and seen tiny brown bugs crawling on top, those are weevils. They lay eggs in dry goods at the processing plant, and they hatch in your pantry. To prevent them, you wipe down every shelf in your pantry with a damp cloth dipped in a borax water solution. 1 tablespoon of borax dissolved in 2 cups of warm water. Wipe the shelves, let them dry. Do not store food directly on the treated surface for 48 hours. Then store your flour, rice, and pasta in airtight glass jars and place a single bay leaf in each jar. The borax residue on the shelves kills any weevil that crawls out of an infested package before it can spread. Drain flies are those tiny gnats that hover around your kitchen sink. They breed in the slime that builds up inside your drain pipes. Pour half a cup of borax directly down the drain, follow it with 2 cups of boiling water, and let it sit overnight. The borax dissolves into the slime, kills the larvae, and prevents new flies from hatching. Do this once a month and you will never see a drain fly again. Dust mites are the microscopic creatures that live in your mattress, your pillows, and your carpets. They are the leading cause of household allergies. The hack here is identical to the flea treatment. Sprinkle borax on the carpet, brush it in, let it sit, vacuum. The borax kills the mites and dries out their eggs. For mattresses, you sprinkle a light dusting on the mattress, leave it for an hour, then vacuum thoroughly before remaking the bed. Do this every 6 months. Termites are next, and this is the application that the pest control industry truly hates. A 2013 study at Auburn University confirmed what foresters had known since the 1930s. Borate solutions sprayed directly on raw wood penetrate the cellulose and become a permanent termite repellent. You take 1 cup of borax, dissolve it in 1 gallon of hot water, and spray it on any exposed wood in your basement, crawl space, or attic. Joists, sill plates, the undersides of stair treads. The wood becomes inedible to termites for years. A professional termite treatment runs between $1,500 and $3,000. A gallon of borate solution costs you about $6. Bedbugs respond to borax dust along the seams of mattresses and the cracks of bed frames. Carpenter bees avoid wood treated with the borate spray. Houseflies die when they walk through borax, sprinkled around manure piles or trash cans. Spiders abandon corners dusted with a light layer of borax because their soft bodies cannot tolerate the abrasion. 3 more quick uses before I give you the last one. Mold prevention. A light spray of borax solution on grout, on the inside of a washing machine drum, on the back of a shower curtain liner, prevents mold spores from taking hold. The boron interferes with the cell wall of fungi, the same way it interferes with the digestive tract of insects. Outdoor weeds. 1 cup of borax per gallon of water kills weeds growing in cracks of sidewalks and driveways. Do not use this near plants you want to keep. Stored grain. A small open container of borax inside your storage bin deters every grain-eating insect from approaching. I saw this in an Amish grain shed in Holmes County in 2019, and the shed had not had a weevil problem in living memory. So before I give you the last piece of this, the one buried on page 11 of a Penn State bulletin from 1962 that has never been reprinted, here is where everything lives. Every remedy, every recipe, every method I have pulled out of these communities is gathered in one place in the description below. It is called the Amish Home System. Now stay right here, because what comes next is the reason I built this entire video around. And now we come to the 20th hack, the one I want you to remember if you remember nothing else from this video. In 1962, the Penn State Cooperative Extension Service published a small agricultural bulletin titled "Something Close to Practical Borate Applications for the Rural Household." It was distributed to extension offices in 8 states and was never reprinted after 1968. I found a reference to it in a footnote inside a larger document on rural sanitation, and I tracked down a photocopy through an interlibrary loan request that took 3 months to fulfill. Buried on page 11 of that bulletin was a technique that I have never seen in any modern article, any extension publication, any YouTube video, or any pest control website. The technique is this. You take a clean cotton sock, an old one, white if possible. You fill it with roughly 1 cup of plain borax powder and tie the open end shut with a piece of twine. You make 6 to 8 of these small borax sachets. Then you tuck 1 inside the back of every kitchen cabinet, 1 inside the linen closet, 1 inside the pantry, 1 under the kitchen sink, 1 behind the refrigerator on the floor, 1 inside the bathroom vanity, and 1 in the basement near any standing water source like a sump pump or water heater. The bulletin called this passive deterrence. The cotton fabric allows the borax dust to release in microscopic amounts over time. Any insect that crawls across the sock or rests on it picks up borax on its body. Roaches, ants, silverfish, spiders, weevils, dust mites, even small rodents that brush against the sock pick up enough irritant to leave the area permanently. The sachets last roughly 12 to 18 months before they need to be replaced. The total cost of treating an entire home this way is under $3. There is no spraying, no mixing, no application schedule. You make the sachets once and forget about them. The bulletin recommended replacing them every spring, the same way Amish families changed out their pantry herbs. I started doing this in my own home 4 years ago. I have not seen a roach, an ant, a silverfish, or a spider inside the house since. My total annual pest control cost is now under $5. My previous annual pest control cost was $420. The savings over 4 years is roughly $1,600. That is real money, and it came from a single page in a forgotten bulletin from 1962. The reason this technique disappeared is the same reason all of these techniques disappeared. It was too cheap. There was nothing to sell once you knew it. No subscription, no service call, no annual contract. Just a sock and a box of mineral powder. The Amish families I sat with did not even need the bulletin. They had been doing variations of this for generations. The sachet method is just the most efficient version of a practice that goes back to at least the late 1800s, when borax first became commercially available in American homes through the famous 20 Mule Team brand, named after the teams that hauled raw borax out of Death Valley starting in 1883. What you have now is a complete pest control system, 20 applications, one $4 box, knowledge that was preserved in farmhouses while it was being erased everywhere else. You did not lose this knowledge because it stopped working. You lost it because someone made more money when you forgot. If you are still with me, you already know what kind of person you are. You are the kind who believes that real solutions are usually simple, usually cheap, and usually hidden behind something more expensive that someone is selling you. You are the kind who would rather spend an afternoon making borax sachets than write a check to a man in a uniform who sprays a chemical he cannot pronounce. I want you to do one thing for me. In the comments below, tell me which of these 20 hacks you are going to try first. The roach honey paste, the ant cotton balls, the flea carpet treatment, the 1962 sock method. Tell me which one and tell me what pest has been driving you crazy. I read every comment and I learn from every story you share. This audience is the most knowledgeable group I know, and the techniques you share in the comments end up in future videos that help thousands more people. If you found value in this, hit the subscribe button. This channel is not about supporting me, it is about a movement of Americans who refuse to forget what was deliberately erased. Every week I dig into another piece of suppressed practical wisdom that the chemical companies, the utility companies, and the regulatory agencies do not want you to remember. Next week, I am opening up a folder of techniques the Amish use for keeping a basement dry without a single dehumidifier, including one method involving wood ash that I had to drive to Lancaster County twice to verify. You will not want to miss it. The $4 box is sitting on the shelf at your local store right now. Same box, same powder, same mineral that has been in the ground for millions of years. You have everything you need. The exterminators have known this the entire time. Now you know it too. Save this video, share it with the one person you know who has been fighting roaches or ants or fleas for years. And the next time someone tells you that real pest control requires a professional, you will smile, because you will know exactly what is sitting inside that cotton sock at the back of your cabinet, quietly doing the work that used to cost you $400 a year. That is the recovered knowledge, that is what they hoped you would never find, and that is what you carry forward now.